Well, the Canadiens have missed the playoffs for the third straight season, but management and the players seem very optimistic about the future of this rebuild. Should they be? We're going to talk about that and a lot more on this week's Hockey Inside Out show. Welcome to the Hockey Inside Out show. I'm Stu Cowan of the Gazette, joined this week by former Canadiens teammates Chris Nyland and Rick Green, who were part of that 1986 Stanley Cup championship team, and our analytics guru, Andrew Berkshire. So there won't be any NHL playoff action in Montreal for the third straight year, but Canadiens management and the players were very positive about the future when they met with the media for the last time this season. Knuckles, do you agree?
Yeah, listen, I'm positive about it. These things take time. If you want to, straighten this mess out, and I don't care they went to the Stanley Cup final and all that, but if you want to straighten it out and build an organization for the future, one that can be consistent in getting to the playoffs, you have to tear it down and then rebuild it properly. And I think they've really done some great things here. They have a ton of assets, especially on the back end. And we're seeing these guys improve, these young guys coming into their own, that young core. And I think they're not right there and ready to get in the playoffs, but they're pretty close. And I think there's certainly some things they need and they have to address. But with all the assets they have, I believe that, there's a good possibility they can do that within the next couple seasons. Now, it's going to take certainly some shrewd moves and good moves and adding and subtracting certain players. But, I like where they are. It's going to take some time. And I think everybody knew that. And I think the fan base is patient. How long will they stay patient for? We'll see. I think they have one more good season of patience. And then after that, they're going to expect more.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think, Rick?
Well, I think if you want to bring statistics into the picture and put a positive spin on 36 games that they lost by one goal, impressive from the standpoint that they were competing and they were almost there. And, you can take that as somewhat of a bonus in the big picture. But, on the other side, I mean, you look at the negatives and 28th in the league, fourth worst goals against. Goals for were not anything in the anything to write home about. So, they struggled in a lot of areas, and you can chalk that up to inexperience, maybe a combination of that. But in the big picture here, these type of areas need to get improved upon in order for it to have any kind of success. And you can't play necessarily that style of play where it's run and gun and giving up plenty of chances against and expect to do well on the goals against side. But they have some potential in the roster that they have, but they do have some work to do to try and fill in some weak areas. And you can build on some of the positive, but they still have some work to do.
Andrew, what makes you positive or not positive?
Yeah, they absolutely have some work to do. I think you look at just from a broad strokes situation, you look at goals for, goals against, right? 2 years ago, they were minus 98, and that includes shootout wins and losses, so that needs to be adjusted just going by the NHL standings. Last year, they were in the minus 70s. This year, I believe, minus 56. So there is basically a 20-goal plus minus improvement year over year now for 2 straight years. If they continue that into next year, they're in the minus 30s area, and that doesn't sound like a playoff team. But those kinds of teams can squeak into the playoffs once in a while. Washington's minus 37 this year. So they are close to being able to put themselves in that maybe window. And I think when you combine the fact that they're probably going to get more than and a third games out of Kirby Dach next year, when you've got young defensemen who are taking another step forward. Cole Caulfield will likely see his shooting percentage get closer to what we expect. There's a lot of winds blowing in the right direction for the Montreal Canadiens to be able to accomplish that improvement without even like a big change in the roster. So if they're able to find, like Jeff Gordon said, or I believe it was maybe him or Kent Hughes, that they're looking at free agents, if they can help them in the short term and the medium term, if they can add, they should be a significantly better team as long as they can keep that same attitude they've had for the last 2 years in a building year where you're not just trying to improve on a personal level, but now as a team level, the team structure getting better, all that stuff kind of coming together. The winds of change are here. I think that's a good thing. It's a lot of positivity, even if the season itself wasn't, a wild success or anything, but it was an improvement. It was a step in the right direction.
Yeah, no, because I think you make a good point, excuse me, when you say like one more year of patience. I know I interviewed Jeff Molson near the end of last season. I asked him, how long do you think Canadiens fans will be patient? He said, I don't know. They've never really gone through this before. But the thing with Kent Hughes, it's been all about asset management since he took over. And he's got lots of assets now, as you guys mentioned, to make some moves, to maybe get some top six forwards who can score. And I sort of chuckle when you hear people saying, St. Louis is not a good coach and fire, they haven't done anything. It took a while for the Canes to get as bad as they were. It's going to take a while to fix them, but they seem to be on the right path. Knuckles, that season-ending news conference last week with Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton, what was your main takeaway after watching that?
I didn't watch it. How's that?
Well, you know those two guys, so what's your main takeaway from those two guys and the jobs they're doing right now?
I like what they're doing. I think the two of them together, they complement each other well. I think Gortz, you look at his track record, Boston, New York, it's a good one. I look at Hughes, certainly being an agent, that's such an asset on the other side as far as, dealing with the salary cap and all that, and understand how to negotiate these deals, not signing bad contracts moving forward will be a good thing. And you just look at the assets they have, especially on defense. Boy, when they're in a position to deal, and I think I mentioned on here last week that this organization at some point has to add some men to it.
Yeah.
Men that can play, men that play that big, heavy, physical game and can actually have input into the results of a game. I think with all the assets they have on D, they're going to be able to do that at some point. And what that point is, I'm not sure. Is it this year, near the end of the year? In the draft, and we'll see. We'll see what they do, but they're certainly going to be in a position to do it. It's when they pull the trigger. But I really like what they're doing.
Knuckles, I know you and Rick were two of the men on that 86 team. Who were some of the other guys that filled that role on that team?
Ryan Walter, Mike McPhee, Bob Gainey. I mean,
Screwy.
We had men up front, Screwy, a lot of men that could play the game and could be standing at the end. And I always say that you got to have guys who are able to, go the distance and, have input, not just go the distance and, I'm part of this group. You actually have an input into the results that you hope to achieve. So that's a big deal when it comes to playoff. The hardest trophy in sports to win. And, if your team is too small, you're not going anywhere.
Rick, what do you think of Gorton and Hughes?
Well, I think they emphasize the point of they like the group. They like the chemistry that they have. Ken Hughes said that he has some work to do as far as making the team better, but their overall projection and feel from what they have in the dressing room is a good one. Moving forward, they talk about evaluating the players and getting a real read on who or what kind of players are part of their future. And they're going to have those meetings. They're going to try and identify the ones that they want to have long term, and try and fix some of the areas that they're concerned about. And they also touched on the fact of were they interested in bringing in an experienced coach to maybe help out the group? And it's always an interesting question on how they approach that, because the group that they have there are going to be having meetings. They're going to discuss about the job that they did, and then decisions will have to be made. So this time of year, there's lots of things that go into discussions with every department, and these guys got a handle on what they would like to do with the organization and the kind of people that they like to have. And I really believe that it should be an interesting summer of change, with some guys going out, some guys coming in. But I think they have a real good handle on the type of personnel that they want to have as being part of the Montreal Canadiens family.
Yeah, Hughes made it sound at the news conference like he might not be making coaching changes. Said he seemed happy with it. Rick, did you have a favorite GM that you played for when you were playing?
Well, Sir Savard, he's a classic example of a real honest, good guy that doesn't play any games, and got a lot of respect for him and the way he handled the guys, and I can speak from experience the way he treated me, and first class, and just a great gentleman.
Andrew, I know during the news conference, Hughes talked about how one of the things he liked about Marty St. Louis, how he uses everything they have, including their analytics department. I know that's your angle. What's your thoughts on what Hughes and Gorton have done with this?
Well, I think overall, it's kind of music to my ears, the way that they talk, the way that they use multiple tools to evaluate things. It's not just about analytics. They're talking to their scouts all the time. I remember when Hughes was first hired and he talked about like creating a development system where you have a package, and like the people who are playing over in like Sweden have communication with the development staff in Montreal, constantly working on things, developing better relationships with other teams so that they can oversee development even when they're not currently in the Canadiens organization, stuff like that. And there's a tone shift, right? We've talked about it a lot, that, Nick Suzuki was talking about they want to take the next steps. Management's trying to take the next steps now too. And we've gone from a careful managing of expectations while also laying out the plan to now Hughes and Gorton are saying, we're going to start to step up here and start to build for now. And I think that's really awesome to see a management group that isn't afraid of putting, I wouldn't say the target on their backs, but like the focus on them, that it's their job now to take things to the next level for the young players in the team, to support them and push them forward. And, maybe things haven't changed as much as it looks on the outside, but from how they communicate with the fan base, how they communicate with the media, it just seems like so much more competence top to bottom. And I think it was Jeff Gordon was saying that he was really proud of Marty St. Louis being like the key point of the organization. And I think that's a really astute thing to be proud of, because to me, Marty St. Louis seems like the guy who every time you underestimate him, he's just going to prove you wrong. And that's been true his whole life. And he keeps proving it as a coach as well. And that's a great person to have in the room. Absence of some veterans in your rebuilding team, you have a guy who's played and been through the crucible of having to make it when you're the smallest guy in the room. It's really cool to have that for the organization, and I think it's really important for the players as well.
Well, I like too is analytics is a tool for them, right, Andrew? It's not the be all and end all. And I know with the Maple Leafs, I think when Kyle Dubas built that team, it was the be all and end all. I know talking with an NHL scout last year, and he was like, "Well, what analytics that tells you when a guy gets punched in the face in the playoffs if he's going to want to keep playing or not?" So I think, Knuckles, that goes back to what you were saying, just about having men on the team, right?
Yeah, listen, I know that certainly in this day and age, it can be a tool you can use, but there's nothing like knowing a player. There's nothing like knowing his character, and there's nothing like watching him in a game and seeing how he plays. You can certainly get a lot from just watching how a guy plays and not looking at any of those numbers, and understand that he needs to be better in certain areas, or he did have a good game, or it was a shitty game. And just because a guy scores 2 goals, does that mean he had a good game? Who knows? You gotta look at the whole package. How'd he play in his own end of the rink? neutral zone, all that stuff. So, listen, I know I have a problem with it as a tool, but if you solely rely on that, yeah, I don't think it's a good thing. It does
You
not
meant
measure character.
you mentioned Brian Skrudlin earlier, Rick. I don't know if he was a good analytics player or not, but he's a guy I want on my team.
Yeah, Chopper. He was good. He was a good chopper, and he was quite a character. Had a lot of fun with him, and you touch on names, and we were fortunate enough to be part of a good group of guys back in the '80s where we look around the dressing room, and even though we might have been struggling, in our play, we really knew that those guys that we looked at and went out on the ice together, we're going to find a way to deliver, and it's something that is so critical in forming a team, and even more difficult today because of restrictions and all that stuff. It's just finding good guys that their heart is in the right place, and they know what it takes to make the difference between almost getting it and getting the job done. And I really think that this is an area that the organization is really trying to improve on and keep consistent, is getting good quality guys that they know what they're going to get each and every night, and that makes winners.
Knuckles, I know there weren't really analytics, I don't think, back when you played. Were there any stats that coaches would focus on or point out to you guys?
Listen, goals against. Yeah. That was a big one, and we paid attention to that. And certainly the teams I played on, when we paid attention to that, we generated a lot of offense. We're a team just sat back, but we're a team that was able to frustrate teams coming through the neutral zone, and we were strong in our own end of the rink. Every forward knew how to play down low in your own end of the rink. You worked on it. You practice it, a couple times a week. Used to hate it doing 3-on-3 down low, but boy, you learned a whole lot, and you certainly got in game situations where you were able to apply that. You didn't panic when you were down low. If I'm a winger, oh my God, I got to take the centerman's position because I'm first guy back, which I wasn't a lot because I was always in on the forecheck. But there were times I was down low, and you had to do the job. And we had a pretty good line that way. It was Bob or me, or Cobb was unbelievable down low. But he'd come in sometimes and call a switch, stuff like that. But man, we really paid attention to that. So that's one area. Yeah, goals against as a team, we took a lot of pride in that, keeping the puck out of our net. And Greeny can tell you that too. Right? Go ahead, Rick. I threw it to you, Rick. Wake up.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, Tommy Steven. I pulled a Donald Trump there. Sorry for that. We did thrive on that part of the game, and that won us a lot of games, and everybody knew what they had to do. And we had the personnel to make it happen. And you talked about not too often being the first guy back is because you never really back checked that much. Or you were selective in your back checking, or
someone who never got over our blue line. I mean, come on.
I just wasn't too sure exactly what your excuse was, but anyways, you made up for it in other ways.
Well, you asked a question, where do the Canadiens have to improve most? I think it's kind of obvious. Score more goals, Andrew, but how do they go about fixing that?
Yeah, I guess you have to start the process of moving some of the talent from defense towards offense, right? They have so many talented young defensemen, and at a certain point, some of them are going to have to move on to other teams. There's only 6-7 spots in the NHL, so they're going to have to make some tough decisions. I don't know if that's going to happen this summer. I think the injury carousel at the end of the year there maybe might have given them a little bit of pause. But you look at Lane Hudson, he looked good in 2 games at the end of the year. And I know those games aren't the best to judge a young player, but at the same time, Detroit needed to win those games to make the playoffs. So they were playing their best games, and Hudson wasn't sheltered. He was out there in top 4 minutes with David Savard. Yes, that helps for sure to protect him a little bit, but he looked good. He looked good against men trying really hard. He wasn't perfect. He made some mistakes, but that's a young player. Logan Mailloux looked really strong in that last game of the season. He made some great plays as well. So there's players knocking at the door, and at a certain point, you've got to move guys out. I know there's a lot of rumors around Jordan Harris. I don't know if he's the guy that I would let go of first, just because I like his versatility. And he had a rough start to the year, but man, he really came on in the second half when a lot of guys were out with injuries or struggling. And I really like Jordan Harris's leadership as well. I like the quality of human he is, and that has to be a bit of a factor.
What you like about him, Andrew, is also what other teams are going to like, right? They're going to have
That's
to
true.
something to get something. So that's the reason I can see Jordan Harris being moved, because of what he is on and off the ice. And I think that'll be appealing to other teams. But you look at Lane Hudson, Rick. I think like you would have been the perfect guy to be a partner for Lane Hudson. What did you think when you saw him play?
Really impressed. I mean, this kid didn't miss a beat, stepping into the lineup and feeling very confident and wasn't afraid to make any mistakes, and basically bought his game that had given him success, at the college level. And that's impressive when you see a kid that handles himself that well, because let's face it, there was a lot of pressure, a lot of people that were, peering down on him and saying, okay, is this guy the real deal? Is there a lot of hype for nothing? But wow, he handled himself really well, and he is quick and smart. And, you talk about his size. Well, yeah, he's not the biggest guy, but he's smart enough to anticipate and quick enough to get to those areas that I think that he can be effective. But, it's going to be very important, and always has been, that chemistry with partners is critical in having, guys work well together back there. And you'd have to be paired up with somebody that's going to be really responsible defensively, somebody that knows that this guy is going, he's going to take chances, and you just you back off, which I did more than not, backing off and making sure that I didn't get caught. So, anyways, a lot of good things on that front. You talk about moving guys out. You have to get interest from the other teams in order for you to make a deal. So the names and the players that you would like to move, not necessarily are the ones that other teams are interested in getting. So it's a question of who's interested in what player and what can you get back. So I'm quite sure there's a lot of discussions going on, like a lot of teams do, but they are dealing with strength in numbers on the blue line. So there's going to be some guys there on the blue line that are going to have to go. And it's just a matter of, what kind of deal, and the best deal that they can get for the player that they would give up.
Knuckles, was Chelios the best offensive defenseman you played with?
Yeah, one of them. I mean, come on, Ray Bork in Boston, right? But Chelly for sure. He wasn't just offensive. He had a nastiness to his game that was, just unmatched in a lot of ways. He was an awesome player. I appreciate Rick's honesty. He certainly, Lil Hudson would be a great partner for him, because, like Greeny said, if Greeny ever got caught up ice, forget about it. Game over, because there's no getting back. So that's why he never ventured up over the red line too much. But listen, this is the problem we talked about. It's a nice problem to have. You got Reinbach, Mailloux, Hudson coming. And who do you move? Again, what players certainly are being targeted by other teams, because they know the Habs have this, supply of defensemen. Is there room for Harris, Kovacevic, Strubble next year? Is there room for those guys? When you look at it, they have those decisions to make. And again, you got Matheson. I didn't even say Justin Barron, Gooley. Yeah, right. So there's a possibility. Abajak, you got to get back and get healthy, but you can't move him. There's just no way I would move that guy. I know there's been talk about it earlier in the season, but That's a great problem to have. You know, what are other teams interested in as far as defensemen? They're probably interested in the guys that you wouldn't move, but you got to be clear with that. And hopefully, you know, when they're ready to make that move, they'll make that decision. It's a tough one. But again, those are the guys I think that have been talked about.
But it goes back to the asset management. And Hughes has so much to play. I mean, Jonathan Kovacevic, now making basically the NHL minimum, but he's an effective sixth defenseman in the NHL, and he'd also have to clear waivers. So you wonder if he's a guy that they maybe package with the first round pick. But Ken Hughes has made it clear that he knows they need to add offensive talent up front, and I think he's going to make some moves this offseason to do it. Andrew, three of the forwards that are probably going to be back next season, just because of their contracts, if nothing else. Josh Anderson, Brendan Gallagher, Christian Dvorak, they rank 3rd, 4th, and 5th on the team salary chart. Do you see one, two, or all three of them being able to contribute next season?
I mean, I guess it depends on what you mean by contributor, right? To be positive members of the lineup. I expect like Anderson should bounce back from a goals perspective, right? He's too talented of a shooter to have that few goals next season if he plays that many games. Dvorak, I don't know. I feel like every time I think he's going to take a step in the right direction, it just hasn't worked out here. It just seems like a situation for him. He just needs to have a good stretch so they can find a new spot for him. He needs a refresh. But Brendan Gallagher, I'm not worried about right now. I look at what he did this season, and I know that the minuses were heavy, but you look at what he's doing on the ice in terms of what will predict the future performance, right? And he was very, very unlucky in terms of his on-ice save percentage. So the goalies weren't stopping much while he was out there. And his on-ice shooting percentage. So the goalies against were stopping an inordinate amount of shots, even for Gallagher not being a good shooter personally. It's like the rest of the team was not finishing their chances while he was on the ice. And still, like, for the minutes that he was playing, for the players that he was playing with, a pretty decent season in terms of production. So I look at this season for Brendan Gallagher where he stayed healthy, where he played pretty well most of the year. He had moments of frustration because he's not the same player he used to be. But I still see him as a very positive contributor to the lineup. And especially late in the season, I thought his buy-in in terms of like being a leader and a veteran on the team just was awesome. Like he was the first guy to go get that puck for Lane Hudson. I think Matheson was the first guy to get it for Mayu to make sure they got their first point puck. It's the little stuff that you see from veterans like Gallagher that you expect a guy at his age and his like the rest of his career to be focused on when am I going to get my chance to win a Stanley Cup? And it probably won't be with this team, but he's still putting in the effort every night. So I've been really impressed with Brendan Gallagher overall.
Well, Gallagher had Hudson lead the line to high-five the bench after Gallagher had scored. It just shows you that also. But the thing with Gallagher, too, the beginning of the season when he had regular line mates with Monahan and Pearson, he played really well. The end of the season when he had regular line mates with Newick and Armia, he played really well. So I think if they can find some regular line mates for him next season and leave him there. I mean, Knuckles, he's like you were talking about they need men. Brendan Gallagher's not a big guy, but he's a man, right?
Yeah, there's no question about it. And listen, he had his struggles the last couple of years, the pandemic years and all that stuff. He looked like he was struggling a bit. But boy, this year, this kid bounced back in a big way. I really like the way he played. Yeah, he's one of those guys for sure that is a man, even though he isn't a big guy. So you need more of that grit with some bigger players who can play the game, like Brendan.
I mean, Brendan Gallagher, for me, I got to give him full marks. I mean, I was critical of his play and really concerned about him being able to contribute in any way other than, showing character. And he stayed healthy. He was very effective in a number of ways, and I'm really happy for him that he had a bounce back type of year where he did a lot of good things for the hockey club. And Dvorak, there's a guy that's had injuries. He hasn't really had a great track record of us being able to see what exactly he can do over an extended period. I have some concerns about him for that type of money that he's making, that he's part of the future. And Josh Anderson, again, huge mystery. that, over the course of the year, we were scratching our heads a number of times going, what's up with Josh? Is there something wrong with him, injury? Just what exactly is going on? And I'm out of all of them, I'm really worried about him because he just looks really confused on how to play. And I don't know if it's a combination of his mental ability to handle when he goes through a little bit of a down period, or just what exactly it is. But he's going to have to push a restart button to get his game back. But he's a real concern to me, and I'm not totally sold that we're going to see bigger and better things from him, judging by what we've seen so far.
Well, credit to Anderson. He took full responsibility when he met with the media at the end of the season. He said, I sucked. I mean, he said, I sucked. I got to be better. And he really does. And he really has to be better for this team to have a chance next season of, playing meaningful games in March and April, maybe sneaking into the playoffs. Andrew, do you see this team maybe sneaking into the playoffs next season?
I think it could happen. I don't think it's likely. I would put it in like the 20-ish, 25% range of possibilities, just because there's so many good teams that are also trying to take a step forward in the East. But before we get into that, I just want to circle back on Josh Anderson for a second, because what you said, Stu, is I think something that's really important for this team. And, as much as Josh Anderson is not a perfect player by any means and has had some serious struggles, mentioning that he owned it, takes responsibility. That is something that you see a lot with this team. There's not a lot of blaming outside external factors. It's a lot of looking inward. So I don't know if I believe Josh Anderson can become the player that he looks like he could be, like just physically, but in terms of his own like mental accountability, I really appreciate that as a person who follows the sport. I think that's a good thing for the team as well. So that's another positive, that attitude permeates the roster, that everybody's looking inward and holding themselves accountable, holding each other accountable. That is how you get better. There's talent, of course, that has to get there. There's hard work, but there's also that lifting each other up part of it. That's what a true team does.
Knuckles, you think Anderson can come back next year?
I do. He certainly has to get back to basics and play the type of hockey that got him here. I didn't see that a lot this year. As far as him, putting it on himself, that's a good thing. And understanding that, you have to be better. But it's pretty hard not to be honest about it. What was he going to say? I didn't have good line mates. I didn't this. He didn't make any excuses, and he took account to it. So, listen, who would ever thought Joel Armia would have had the season he had this year? His best season of hockey. Easy to give up on a guy like that, right? You get frustrated with him. They certainly got his attention. And I think they can do the same with Josh, and he has to hold himself accountable in the offseason here and do the things that he has to do to get himself ready for the season, and then come into this next season with the mindset that you're going to be a consistent player and play the game hard and pay the price night in and night out. And that's very difficult to do. And I think I talked to you guys about, you're allowed one bad game in 10. Lemire told me that. I'll give you one stinker every 10 games. That's it. And you got to set that as a goal. You can't have one bad game and let it slip into the next. You got to get on your horse again and do something about it next game, not sit around and wait. Oh, poor me, I suck, poor me. And then next thing, you suck all year. So it's a good start that he took account to it and he put it on himself. Now he's got to put it on himself to be better and be more consistent game in and game out next season.
Yeah, I think we had so much patience with him this year.
Yeah.
Didn't make him a healthy scratch, didn't send him down, was in his corner. But you got to wonder next season, especially if they add more forwards, if he could find himself in a similar situation to Armia, where either he gets sent down or something to wake him up. And, Armia talked about how he worked with the team's mental performance coach, how much that helped him. That's something Josh Anderson might want to think about taking advantage of also. Just, Rick, your thoughts on Josh Anderson?
Well, again, it's entirely up to him on how he has to, get his act together. And we've seen some times where we said, "Oh, okay, we see the Josh Anderson that we were hoping to see," and I just have a concern that he's not able to find his game back. But the fact that he said that he was not very good for most of the year. Yeah, that's probably not a bad thing. But now, how do you handle it and get yourself to be better than what you were? And you can talk about mental toughness. You can talk about all the things that make up a good player. Now it's up to him. It's on him to figure out what he needs to do to get his A game back, because you need a guy like that. He has shown signs, but right now he's obviously not where they would like him to be.
Well, that's it for our final Hockey Inside Out show of the season. Thanks to everyone out there for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. And yes, there is definitely reason for optimism next season with the Canadiens. Hopefully this time next year, maybe we'll be watching the Habs in the playoffs. In the meantime, please make sure you like and subscribe to the Hockey Inside Out YouTube channel. Go to montrealgazette.com/newsletters to sign up for the Hockey Inside Out newsletter. And of course, go to hockeyinsideout.com where we'll have full coverage of everything that happens during the offseason.